It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs, have some fun.
Welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. OTAs are over. I am John Schmeelk. He is Matthew Citak. The Giants were supposed to have their final OTA today. They decided to do a little team outing instead. So that's why you're not going to see any practice reports or anything like that from us today on the website. We have 2 days of minicamp practice next week that we will cover the same way we did OTAs. And that will, Matt, wrap up the Giants spring.
Yeah, and then we had I guess you can call it a little break.
No, it's a little break.
It's not much, but
it's little. That's for sure. It's little.
A little bit of time off before we ramp things up for training camp.
Yeah, it's basically 4 weeks, and give or take, and then the players are back. Again, we don't have the exact date, somewhere in that July 22nd, 23rd area, and that's when training camp will kick off again. Thanks for joining us in the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. So today we're going to do some fun. We did a NFC East player draft earlier this week. Thought it would be fun, though, to just focus in on the Giants with Matt here. So what we're going to try and do here today, we're going to throw the coaches and special teams out because teams will carry multiple specialists to make that an interesting part of the conversation. So each of us, just off the Giants roster, is going to draft our best possible 22-man roster in a typical draft format, back and forth. And the reason I want to do this, not to figure out which one of us is a better drafter, I want to figure out where the Giants have the most depth and where maybe we think they're a little bit lacking. Because when we're done here, Matt, we're going to draft 44 players. That's darn near all of the position players that the Giants are going to have in the roster that are not special team specific, right? You're going to have your 3 specialists. You're going to have some players that are, primarily there for coverage teams. So we're getting through 95% of the position players on the roster, or who we think might be on the roster when we draft these teams. And we're going to see where maybe we think the Giants, you might have some concerns depth-wise, and where we feel really comfortable where the Giants are depth-wise based on, remember, we're drafting 2 full teams here. So you're basically getting 1 or 2 backups really for each position. So depending on what position you're talking about. So it should be a good exercise. Let's have some fun. Mr. Pearson, are you ready with your phone coin flipper?
Ready.
Okay. You can do the honors. Heads or tails?
Heads.
Tails never fails.
I know. Dex always goes tails.
Tails.
Oh, there we go. Now, this is tough. I asked Pearson what he would do with this pick when we started the show. Because I think there are 2 guys you could take here. And I think it's a really tough call which one I want to take. Because they're both dominant. I think they'll both help you win a lot of football games. And I think the next best guy of both these positions, Matt, it's a big drop-off. Going from one to the next. But I'm going to go with the guy that is tried and true and has done it for a longer period of time. So I'm going to go with Dexter Lawrence. He's the best player on the team. He might be the most dominant defensive player in the National Football League at this point. He had 9 sacks last year as a nose tackle in just 12 games. He's a monster. He helps your pass rush. He helps your run defense. And there's not another player like him, let alone on the Giants, but in the National Football League. So I decided to go with Dexter Lawrence with my first pick.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, 2-time All-Pro, would have been 3-time All-Pro had he not gotten hurt last year. He's probably the best player at his position, if not the best. 1B to Chris Jones is 1A, so yeah. Can't really argue with you there.
Is that who you would have picked first?
No.
Okay. Where are you going?
And it's not because I don't think he's the best player on the team, because I do think he is the best, most talented player on the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go with someone based on, you kind of mentioned it, but it might not be who you think.
Okay.
Based on who the Giants have elsewhere at this position. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors.
That was my second guy.
All right.
I said to Pearson, should I go Neighbors here or should I go Dexter Lawrence? That was my debate.
Because, we saw what Malik did as a rookie last year. Amazing with, let's just call it, not the greatest quarterback play. And obviously we expect the quarterback play to be a lot better this year. I'm excited to see what he can do. And in no disrespect to the the other wide receivers on the team, but there clearly is a drop off between Malik and whichever guy you want to put second, and it's just because of how good Malik Neighbors is. Nothing against the other guys.
Yes. And I think the interesting part too, when you see how teams in the National Football League are building teams, Matt, who are the positions that are right after quarterbacks in terms of who makes the most money? It's wide receivers and guys that get after the quarterback.
Yep.
So I think for anybody drafting these teams, these would probably be the first two off the board if you're building an NFL team. I'm usually an offense first guy, which is why I wanted to pick Neighbors. But look, he's only been in the league for 1 year. He's coming off of an injury. Dex has done it for long. I know Dex is coming off an injury too, but he has a long history of being healthy in these years.
That's true.
And so it was a tough call for me. I was hoping you would not go with Neighbors. I wanted to get it with my second pick.
I knew if I had second pick, I was going to get one of those two. So whichever one you didn't take.
So now I am going to take a little bit of a risk now with my third pick. And look, we always talk about this guy. It's the guy that's vital to the Giants' success. And if we've seen when he gets hurt the last few years, everything goes haywire and everything goes wrong. So I cannot not go with Andrew Thomas here. And I understand the injury concerns and how he has not played, double-digit games now for, is it 2 straight years under double digits? Or did he get to 10?
No, I believe
he did not
it was
get to 10, right? 9
in 2023.
So that's about where he's been, but he's so important. And if he's not at left tackle, who is? And then you kind of get into panic time with who's behind him. So, again, not that you don't believe in a guy like James Hudson who they brought in. He just doesn't play to the level that Andrew Thomas does. So I'm going to go with Andrew Thomas here with pick number 3.
Yeah, so that's when you were talking before about, the drop-off between this guy and
you thought I meant Thomas, right?
I wasn't sure if you meant Malik or Thomas.
It works for both of them.
I kind of assumed you would be taking Thomas with that pick. All right.
This is where it gets interesting now.
Actually, it's pretty easy for me.
Okay.
I'm going Brian Burns next.
That would have been my next pick, too.
I mean, if you look at what he did last year, and I think people sometimes forget, he played basically the entire year banged up. Now, granted, this is the National Football League. Most guys are banged up, and most guys are banged up for most of the year. But he was really fighting through injuries basically from the start of the season till the very end. He still played all 17 games and was still very effective. And that was with Kayvon missing 5 games, with Dex missing 5 games. Burns still had a pretty solid season, and now given even more talent around him, I think we might see the Brian Burns this year that I know we were all hoping we were going to get last year. I think that version of Brian Burns, if he stays healthy, that's the one we're going to see this year. So Brian Burns will be my pick.
Okay, I think that's a good pick. Now, I have 2 guys here I'm looking at, and I don't know if you're going to pick the other one if I don't. I also think there could be a third guy in the mix. So this is a tough decision because I do think, much like before, you're looking at 2 spots where if you don't draft this guy, there's going to be a drop-off at the position. All right, I am going to select Jermaine Illuminor and get my 2 starting left tackles in the building.
Are you doing that just to get both tackles and leave me without any starting tackles?
No, I'm just Matt. I don't know who my right tackle would be if I don't draft Illuminor. It's going to be Hudson, but I don't.
Guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, I guess we're going to find out, right? But I think again, this is the point, right? Illuminor is not the next best player on the roster.
No,
right? That's the point. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 other guys I would pick ahead of him before I got to Illuminor in terms of what the best player is. But we're talking about players that are most important and that are going to help you win games, right?
Yep.
He can play guard in a pinch. He can play both tackle spots if you need him. So I just think the value of him as a player, and again, I've talked about this. If the Giants would want to talk about a contract extension with him, I would have no problem with that either. He's a good guy. He's a good teammate. So I'm going to go with Jermaine Illuminor here at right tackle.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going to go that way. Just because, as you said, he's not the next best player on the team. And so I was thinking that I would get him with my next pick here. You kind of left me with not the greatest options at tackle, but at least now I don't have to worry about tackle.
Now you can wait till the end of the draft to pick him.
Yeah.
That is the advantage that I gave you. That is true. That's true.
Call it an advantage. Okay. So then let's see. All right. Then for my next pick, this is another position where I think there is a somewhat sizable drop off
crap
between this guy and then the next guy at this position.
I think I know who you're picking.
He's a new addition to the team. He is also coming off an injury.
Oh, yeah.
But based on, first of all, the video that he posted on social media before getting signed of him doing backflips and then fully participating in the spring, I think he's healthy and ready to go. So my pick will be Paulson Adebo.
Those are the two guys I was debating between. Man, we are on the same page here, Matt. This is interesting. All right. I can't argue with that. I do think there's a drop off at that spot. He was the other guy I was considering. If I picked Adebo, you would have taken Illuminor, I'm assuming, with your pick there. All right, so I wouldn't have got both guys anyway. So I'm not going to beat myself up over that. All right, so I'm up now, and you know what? I already picked the bookend tackles. I might as well pick the player that's going to benefit from that the most, and I'll take Russell Wilson. I think I want him as my quarterback. I think he is, by a pretty wide margin, the best quarterback on this team right now. Remember, we're trying to win games this year. This is not drafting for future years. This is just to win as many games as we can in 2025. So I'm going to go with Russell Wilson here to be my starting quarterback behind my two bookend tackles in Thomas and Illuminor.
Yeah, can't blame you there. That was what I was. He was in consideration for the next pick.
I'm curious who you pick as your quarterback. You don't have to do it to the end, but I'm curious who you pick.
I mean, based on what you just said, I feel like there's more.
I'm curious who you pick.
Okay. All right. Well, we will find out. All right. Then for my next pick, I am going to. Right now, I only have Malik on offense. I'm going to stick with the defense, though. And
I only have one defensive player. I don't feel great about that, by the way.
And I am going to address the one level of the defense that I have not yet, and I'm going to take Bobby Okereke.
He was next on my list, too. Wow. Okay. That's a good pick.
So now I got one edge, one linebacker, and one guy in the secondary. All right. My defense is looking pretty good, at least.
Yeah. I think your defense looks great, to be totally honest with you.
Right now, offense is kind of looking like the Giants' offense last year. It's just Malik Neighbors.
All right, I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball here. I need to get this short up a little bit. I would have picked Okereke if he was there to anchor that. But instead, I'm going to help the edge position. And I know I'm going out on a limb here, Busy. I've never seen him play a snap for the New York Football Giants or an NFL team before. But I'm going to go with Abdul Carter. I want an explosive pass rusher to complement Dex, to get after the quarterback. I thought about Tibbs here. I thought about two other players. But I'm going to go with Abdul Carter here as my pass rusher off the edge.
Yeah, again, can't blame you there. I mean, from the little bit we've seen in spring, granted with no contact, but
looks pretty good.
He looks explosive.
He does.
And this is him lining up sometimes on the inside because of obviously the guys the Giants have on the edge. And it looks like he's going to be a type of guy where you can literally line him up anywhere and against just about anyone. And he's got a pretty good chance at winning that matchup. Again, from the little bit we've seen so far. So, okay, I was kind of waiting for you to take one of the two edge guys.
Yes.
Because I knew there were two left. And I'm not even going to wait because I want to just keep shoring up my defense. So I'm going to go with the other one now and get my two, just like you took your two tackles, I'm taking my two edge guys, and I'm taking Kayvon Thibodeau now.
I like it. Good pick. All right, so now I can wait to the end to pick my edge guy. And I feel really good about Chauncey Golston, by the way. I think he's a good player. So I do not feel bad about that. One more of a bigger run stopper on one edge, right? And you got the pass rusher on the other. So I like my little combination there. But I can wait to the end. I don't need to do that here. All right, so I'm going to jump to who I think is the next best player on the defense. And I'm going to go with Javon Holland, safety, to anchor my secondary, to be that guy back there. You have Bobby Okereke as your main communicator. I'm going to have Javon Holland step in and kind of be the guy that mine's my safety spot.
Yeah, so honestly, if you hadn't taken Abdul with that last pick, my pick probably would have been Javon Holland.
Nice.
But you did, so I am going to take the guy that's likely going to be starting right next to him, and Tyler Nubin. I want to make sure I don't lose out on both starting safeties.
I think that makes sense.
And I think Tyler Nubin, I mean, we saw what he did last year as a rookie. First of all, only missed, 2 snaps prior to his season-ending foot injury.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man out there. Looked pretty good as well. And again, I'm going to say this about a lot of the guys on the defense, but just with the pure level of talent all across the defense now at every single level, all of these guys are going to get put in such more opportunities to make plays, force turnovers. Tyler Nubin didn't even have an interception last year. He was a ball hawk in college. He's going to get back to that, and I have a feeling he's going to be adding quite a few takeaways to the turnover chest this season.
I think he will as well. All right. I'm going to go with the guy that I think is really the only true slot on the roster who plays really good in that spot. There's another player that can do both, and I'm sure that's who you're going to end up picking to play that spot. But I want to play nickel. I want to play 5 defensive backs as my base defense. So I'm going to go with Drew Phillips here to slide into my slot cornerback spot heading into his second year.
It's a good pick. Everything I just said about Tyler Newman kind of goes
Hey, look,
to
stops
Drew
the run
Phillips as well.
He's makes the right plays. He's physical. He's a good football player. I still think we need to see when he gets into those man-on-man situations on the field how he covers. We haven't seen a ton of that yet, especially man-to-man. But he's a good football player, so I'm going to go Drew Phillips here with that pick.
All right. I am finally going to go back to the offensive side of the ball now. I feel pretty good with the core of my defense right now.
I think you
Got
should.
Almost half of my defense filled up. I am going to take... I'm going to keep adding to my wide receiver room.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to take the guy who he's been Mr. Consistency for years. Giants just brought him back this offseason. He's looked great this spring. Darius Slayton.
I was going to pick him, and then I decided to pick Phillips instead. Trapped. I didn't think you would go back to wide receiver again. That's what I get for
Keeping
trying
you
to
on your
anticipate.
toes.
No, you are keeping me on my toes. Absolutely. I think that's a good pick. All right. I'm going to pivot back to defense then because I want to have at least one veteran player on this level of the defense. I would take Micah McFadden, a linebacker. I think he's dependable. I like him as a blitzer, and I think he's a guy that just is a real consistent performer. And I think once you get past McFadden, we might like some of the players at linebacker, but you're out of proven commodities. You know, Darius Musa played a little bit in that spot last year. You liked what you saw, but still late round, third-day draft pick. Didn't play a ton last year. I want to... You know, if you would have drafted McFadden, I would have been really worried about my linebacking core. So I'm going to put Micah McFadden in that slot.
I did consider it, but I had a feeling that if I did, you were going to take Slayton. And
I would have
I
picked
wanted
Slayton,
to get another offensive weapon out there.
Yes.
So, all right, I'm glad I took him then.
Yes, good pick.
All right. Back to me. Ooh, I still don't have an offensive lineman. I do not love that.
Yeah, you might want to block somebody. Kind of important.
Well, again, we're talking about trying to get the best players on the team, and once the 2 tackles are gone,
We're also building a roster. We're trying to build a team that wins.
Yeah.
Then again, I have a quarterback with no receivers to throw the ball to. So what does that tell you?
Okay. I am going to go with I got to do it because he's my boy. And he's going to play right next to Tyler Newman in the secondary. My guy, Dane Belton. I've been hyping him up since before OTA started. He's looked great in OTA. He's probably been the defensive standout in OTAs. And again, it's OTAs.
That would be a preview of Matthew Citak's Fact or Fiction coming later today on Giants.com.
Oh, yes. It's already written. So, yes, I did go with fact on that one.
So literally in my answer, I go, I know Citak's going to go fact here, so I'm going to give you a different name. And I didn't even know what you wrote, but I knew that's what you were going to write.
I was going to write
Yes,
it.
I
I
did.
mean, look, the guy, I've said this on the show, I don't even know how many times now, but the guy just forces turnovers. He gets the ball into his hands, whether it's on defense, on special teams. And guess what? That's exactly what he's done this spring. I think he has 3 interceptions, which is the most takeaways of anyone on this defense. Again, he's looking like he's slotting into that number 3 safety role, assuming Newman and Javon Holland are healthy. But if he keeps playing like this, he's going to force the coaching staff to get him on the field because they're just not going to be able to keep him off if he keeps playing at this level.
All right, since I don't have any receivers, I better be able to run the football here. So I'm going to pick Tyrone Tracy to be my running back. I know it's a deep position. I just think he's a really good football player, and I think he is going to be the Giants' number 1 back this year. And if I can't throw it, I better be able to run it. So I'm going to pick Tyrone Tracy here as the starting running back, who I do think will be getting 60 to 70% of the carry share to start the year. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good pick. I think he definitely is the most talented running back on this team. We haven't seen much of Cam Scadaboo, but
yes,
Tyrone Tracy, we saw what he did last year, going into year 2 now. And again, everyone seems to forget the guy's only had 2 full seasons playing the running back position, one in college and then last season. And he looked pretty darn good for someone that has not played that position much. So I think that is a very good pick there. All right. Next up for me. Ooh, I know what I'm going to do next. Going back to the defense, someone that you mentioned that you wanted as an edge guy, but guess what? This guy's versatile. I'm going to line him up on the inside.
Oh, you son of a gun.
I'm going to line him up on the inside. So I'm going to take Chauncey Golston.
That's a good pick. Yeah, you got me with that one.
He's definitely going to he's going to be lining up all over the defensive line this season. He's not going to just be exclusive to one position or one spot. He will line up at some at defensive tackle. He certainly will get some snaps at edge as well. He's looked pretty good this spring as well. Again, granted, no contact. There's only so much you can learn from offensive linemen and defensive linemen, but so far so good from him. So taking him as my first defensive tackle.
All right, so I'm leaning into the run game. What do you need with a good run game? You need some play-action passes and a guy that can win over the top. So I'm going to go with Jalen Hyatt here. Even though Wando Robinson is more of a proven wide receiver, I need a speed guy on the outside to play offense the way I want this group to play offense. I have Russell Wilson at quarterback that loves throwing the moon ball deep. Well, I want the fastest guy in the team, and that's Jalen Hyatt. So I'm going to go Jalen Hyatt here to be my first wide receiver.
Yeah, again.
And you already took two of them, so I'm running out of guys.
He has looked great this spring. I mean, again, not to ruin fact or fiction, but that was my pick for the offensive standout.
That one I couldn't get to, I couldn't get more creative. I thought it was just too hard to argue against that.
Yeah,
you had to. He's
like,
been great.
Look, and I know,
And by the way, we haven't talked about this part of it. Has he dropped the pass?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I not that I can remember at all.
Neither can I.
And I know because I saw, especially after Darius Slayton said yesterday about him adding Jalen Hyatt adding the muscle. Saw plenty of people on Twitter being like, "Oh, we've heard this before. We heard this last year." Let me tell you, because John, the two of us, we were out there every day during OTAs last year, and again every day during OTAs this year. He looks significantly better right now than he did at this time last year.
Yeah, and last year, neither one of us said that we thought he looked significantly bigger.
No, I think he might have said that he added some muscle,
yes.
but and then I think we said this last year.
I think he
didn't look like
and even
much.
he only said he added like 5 pounds or something.
Yeah,
like
but
that. Like it wasn't a lot.
I don't know if you remember, like day one of OTAs, maybe even before, the first time I saw him with a sleeveless shirt on, I said he looks noticeably bigger.
Yes,
don't know if necessarily if it's 20 pounds of muscle bigger, because that is a lot.
That's a lot.
But he looks
even if
noticeably
it's just
bigger.
10, that's more than enough.
That is a good
if you
amount.
can get up to 180, it's all he needs to be. That's what Devontae Smith is. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just don't hover around 170 and you're good.
Yeah, so I like that pick there. Let's see. All right, might as well just round out the wide receiver room then and get my slot guy, and I'll take Wandell Robinson.
All right.
Pretty happy with my wide receivers being who are likely to be the top 3 wideouts on the team this year. Granted, I don't have anyone to throw them the ball or anyone to block for the no-name quarterback, but at least we have the wide receiver room done.
You do. Excellent job on the wide receiver. All right, well, you're going to make me pivot here now, Matt. And I was going to play 11 personnel, but maybe I'm going to lean into something else. I'm going to pick Theo Johnson to be my starting tight end. So I'm going to slide him into tight end here, and you'll see what I do here as I try to round down my offense. You're up.
All right,
and by the way, Theo Johnson, I give my little thumbnail on him, I guess. Big player, size-wise. Came on at the end of last year before he got hurt. Receiving skills. I don't think he's the twitchiest guy, but he certainly has straight-ahead speed. He's got good hands. He can get open. He can block a little bit. So I think you hold my run game. Like I said, I want to be a run-first team. I want the big run-blocking tight end in there. So I'll bring Theo Johnson in to be my starting tight end.
Yes, I was deciding between Wandell and Theo.
I would have picked the other guy if you would have picked the other guy. So there you go.
That's kind of what I figured. I can't really argue with that pick there. All right. I think it is finally time.
Are you going to break the lid on the offensive line?
I think so. And, this guy, granted, I think we maybe wanted or expected, I guess, slightly better play last year. But again, he was better in the first 6 weeks before Andrew Thomas went down. Once Andrew Thomas went down, the whole line took a big hit, and everyone kind of dipped in their production, so to speak. I think again, as long as Andrew Thomas stays healthy, I think this guy is due for a much better season. I'm going to take John Runyon.
I thought he played well last year. I had no problem with
he
what
was
played
solid.
last year.
He was solid. He wasn't bad, but I guess we were maybe hoping he would, bring, I don't know about Pro Bowl level play to the interior offensive line, but I think he could improve the season.
He's left guard or right guard for you, Runyon?
Left
guard for now, right? Left guard for now.
Yeah.
You can always move him around. All right, so I'm going to actually then boost my offensive line as well, and I'm going to go with Greg Van Roten. He's a guy that can play guard. He can move around a little bit. He's a veteran. I'm going to slide him in as one of my starting guards. And he has flexibility and versatilities, which will protect me in case you do something here that make me be annoyed.
That is true. Honestly, I mean, people that listen to this show, you guys know, I love Greg Van Roten. I was very happy when the Giants brought him back. I just think Runyon's ceiling, given his age,
I would have picked Runyon before Van Roten
is higher, but I probably would have taken Van Roten with this pick if you did not just take him there. So, all right. Well then, with my next pick, all right, I am going to take the number 1 center on the team in John Michael Schmitz. And I
thought you might do that.
And I know, a lot of people might be disappointed with his first 2 seasons, but to that I will say his rookie year compared to last year were very different. He got a lot better. Granted, there's still a lot of room for improvement, but he was better last year than he was as a rookie. He took a pretty decent sized step. Obviously, going into year 3 now, which is a big year for offensive linemen, he needs to take a much bigger step up. But he's the best center on this team.
Yep.
And I don't think it's very close. I think we're going to see better play from him this year. Again, assuming the linchpin of the line stays healthy and Andrew Thomas. But I think the version we see of JMS this year, based on not what we've seen in spring, because again, offensive linemen are not a whole much to learn, but more so from what we've heard his teammates say about him since they reported here, right before the draft, the beginning of the offseason workout program. Anytime he's been brought up, whether it's fellow offensive linemen and quarterbacks raving about him. So I think we're going to see a year 3 jump from JMS. So I'm taking him as my center.
I like it. All right, I'm going to go over to the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to get my first outside cornerback. And I'll roll the dice on some upside here. I'll go with Deonte Banks. I will hope that he steps up in this year. I want a guy that's big and physical on the outside. I already have I have a physical slot. I want a physical outside cornerback as well. So I'm going to go with Deonte Banks as one of my outside starting corners.
Yeah. And again, I was kind of waiting for you to take one of the 2 corners for me to then come in and take the next one with my next pick. So I'm going to go and take Cordell Flott with my next pick. And Cordell he's looked pretty good this spring.
That was my standout on defense pick.
He has looked pretty good. I know feel like we've all been like hoping or waiting for a breakout from him prior to this season, his first couple of years, but so far this spring, he's had pretty sticky coverage no matter who he's been lined up against. He's been mixed in. Him and Deonte Banks have both gotten time mixing with the starters. He's gotten some reps there. He's looked good, whether it's with the first or second team defense. I think he's going to get at least some chance to play this year. Again, I would still think Deonte Banks is the favorite to be the starter opposite Paulson Adebo. But Cordell Flott's certainly going to get some opportunities, especially training camp, preseason, to show what he can do. So, and I think he's going to take advantage of those opportunities. So I'm going with Cordell Flott here.
No, I think that's a good pick.
And it's a TBD right now whether or not he's on the outside or in the slot.
I like it. All right, I'm going to stick with the player that I just think is really good. He's a new player. We have not seen him with the Giants yet. But I think, you know what? I think this is instructive right now, Matt, because I think we're looking at a few spots, and we kind of explain the purpose of this exercise to see where the Giants might have depth issues. Like, who's the 4th safety? Is it Anthony Johnson? Is it Raheem Lane?
Those are going to be my 2
right
picks. One of those 2.
Right. So that's an area where I think we get to camp. Who's going to be the 4th safety on the roster? Is there a 4th safety on the roster? Right. That's one spot that I'm keeping an eye on. The other spot, I think, once you get past the top 4 cornerbacks, who's cornerback 5? Is it Trey Hawkins? Is it Art Green? These are the type of guys we're talking about. Once you get to cornerback number 5. So those are 2 deeper depth spots. Because you want to have more than 4 corners. You want to have one more safety than 3. So who's your next guy up at those 2 spots? Let's take a look at wide receiver. All right, we know who the top 4 guys are. Those guys are all off the board. Who's your 5th wide receiver? I think Amir Smith-Marset gets put on because of special teams, but we're not drafting special teams here, right? So who's your 5th wide receiver that's just a wide receiver, right? We're looking at the Zach Pascals. We're looking at the little Jordan Humphreys. is it one of these undrafted rookie free agents that figures out a way to get on the right roster? Is it a Bryce Ford Wheaton who's got a lot of size? So I think that's another spot. Again, we're talking about not even the first guy off the bench. We're talking about the next guy after that. Who's your next wide receiver that's coming off the bench? So I think as we do this, those are some of the areas of depth that I'm keeping an eye on, that I'm, maybe I'm not positive what we have necessarily. All right, so I'm going to go to defense, and I'm going to pick Darius Musow, just because I think, again, we talked about inside linebacker. I don't think there's a ton of depth there, Matt, once you get past the top two guys. We have Musow, who played enough last year where I think you feel good about it. But after that, you're looking at a bunch of unknowns. Deontay Johnson's been here. He hasn't really played a ton, but I don't know who the next guy is an inside linebacker. You got a guy like Chris Board, Flanagan Foles, who are more special team types. Are they really guys that are going to be on the field on defense so much? So I'm going to go Musow here. And then I'm curious who you think is the next linebacker up to play next to Okereke. You don't have to pick him now, obviously, but I'm curious where you end up going with that.
Not going to pick him now, but you will get my answer.
I will. I look forward to it.
For now, I'm going to go with the guy that I was pretty confident you were about to take, and then you changed your mind at the last second. I'm going to finish up my defensive line and take a guy that, as you mentioned, has not played a single snap yet, hasn't even done a lot in the spring, but I just think the upside is there, very much so, and especially given.
Oh no, I was not going to pick him actually.
Oh well, there you go. So there's a veteran I was considering with this spot, or the rookie, and I'm going with the rookie because I want to go with the upside, especially because I have Brian Burns and Kayvon on the outside. So I'm going to go with the upside play on the inside next to Chauncey Golston. I'm going to take Darius Alexander.
Nice. All right.
Again, we haven't seen him do much. And not even if he was out here, there was, again, not a whole lot you can learn from the defensive lineman. It's going to be a lot more telling in 6 weeks when the pads come on at training camp. But I'm really excited to see him play, and especially with the other guys around him on the defensive line. I mean, after the draft, we were talking about how that could be one of the most underrated picks and a guy that could contribute and contribute right away for this defense. I'm excited to see what he can do.
All right, that is exciting. All right, I like it. A little smaller defensive line there. My power running game is going to give you some issues there with your tiny inside line.
Well, you got Tyrone Tracy.
Lineman.
He's not exactly the power back.
Oh, he can run with plenty of power. Don't you worry about that. All right. All right, Pearson, you're going to slide over Greg Van Roten to center. He's going to be my starting center, not a starting guard. So one of the reasons I picked him, I thought you might go JMS. So I wanted the guy that could be a little flexible there. So move Van Roten over the center for me, and I'm going to slide Evan Neal in as my starting left guard. So I'm going to draft Evan Neal here. Much like Deonte Banks, I'm betting on some upside here. I'm hoping for him, at least in a new position, you get a better quality of play. I think there is upside there. He's big, he's strong, he's powerful. I think he can do it. So I'm going to go Evan Neal here.
So
Evan Neal's left guard.
So what position do you have right guard left?
Yes, I have right guard left. That is correct.
All right, so then I'm going to take my right guard right now, so you don't take him first, and I'm going to take Aaron Stinney.
Okay. That leaves me a guard I'm still happy with, so that's okay.
I was kind of waiting to see who you took between I figured it was going to be one of those two, so I was happy to take whichever one you did it. So I will shore up the interior offensive line with Aaron Stinney.
No, I like that. I think that's a good pick. All right, now we're getting to the point where we're just running at, we have all the positions drafted, so we just got to figure out who the next best guy up is. So I'm going to bet on upside with my next pick here as well. So I'm going to play some 12 personnel, Pearson. You can remove that third wide receiver from my offense. You can put in the tight end there. And I really thought about Bellinger here, but, I'm a big Thomas Fidone fan, and I want somebody with some receiver upside to go next to Theo Johnson to get a little bit of they're both really long, 34-inch arms. They can run the seams a little bit. He came from a blocking run scheme in Nebraska. So I'm going to go with Thomas Fidone here as my tight end number 2, Pearson, and I'm going to run 12 personnel as my base offensive package.
All right. I got to say, I was not expecting that. Thought you were going to go in a different direction, and I was a little worried.
You thought Manhurts?
No, I didn't think you were going to take
you think
tight end.
All right, yeah, we're okay.
So, again, I have my interior offensive line done. I don't have a single tackle. So I'm going to take a tackle now, and I feel like this might have been the guy that you were thinking of for your guard. I'm going to take Marcus Bowe.
No, actually, I was not.
Oh, all right.
I was not.
Well, I know he's obviously a rookie, and he's versatile. He's been training at all 5 positions. Obviously, that is a much more...
Right or left?
Put him in the right.
Yeah. I think he's been at right tackle primarily, so I'd go there. I think that's smart.
That's clearly, again, somewhat of an upside pick because we haven't seen him play a single snap, and especially as an a fifth-round rookie offensive lineman, it's a little bit of an unknown. But especially with the more veterans on the inside, I think that will help him. And if he ends up getting into a game this season, he will lean on those veterans wherever he's lined up next to. So I'm gonna go with Marcus Bowe.
I like it.
And I don't think necessarily that he is the next best tackle. I just thought you were going to take him, so I tried to snipe it before you did.
I like that. All right. So I think all the positions I have left are positions that you have except for corner. And I didn't want to have to make this tough decision, but you're going to make me make the decision as to who the next best corner is. And you know what? A guy that I think has done a pretty good job since he's gotten here, Matt, has been Art Green. He's a free agent. He's come over. He's been solidly with the twos throughout pretty much all of camp. He's gotten his hand on the football a little bit. I think he plays good coverage. I thought about Trey Hawkins here. That was my other guy I was thinking about. But every time he'll flash in camp here or there, but when he gets into games, it just hasn't clicked with him. He still has the size and the speed. Maybe it will this year finally. But I'm going to go Art Green here as my second cornerback.
All right. Yeah, that would have been my next pick for a quarter.
That's your third cornerback.
I'm sorry. My second outside cornerback, third corner overall. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. We're running nickel defense here. Yes.
Yeah, that would have been my next pick at corner, so can't blame you there. I am going to finish up my offensive line now with the selection of James Hudson as my other tackle.
That makes sense. He's the swing. He's the next best guy up.
Would have preferred having one of Andrew Thomas or Jermaine Illuminor, but you took Illuminor a little sooner than I thought you would, so James Hudson will be my starting left tackle.
All right, I'm going to slide in Roy Robertson Harris as my defensive tackle next to Dexter Lawrence. Good run stopper, long, violent. I'm drafting like I'm just building trenches here. So I'm going old school here with the way I'm building the team. So I'm going to go Roy Robertson Harris as my defensive tackle. Mr. Citak?
So let's see. We have what? 1, 2, 3.
I have 4 guys left. I think you have 5.
Yeah. Okay. And it's all positions you have, so it doesn't really matter the order that
that's correct.
Take these guys in now anyway. All right. I'm going to let's get the quarterback out of the way now. I'm going to go with Jameis Winston. And
that's who I would
if we're talking about 2025, not the future, as you mentioned. And as I've said many times since the Giants drafted Jackson Dart, I hope that Jackson Dart does not see the field at all this year because that means the Giants are winning games, their offense is playing well, and I think it's beneficial for his development to sit, the whole season might be unrealistic, but at the very least half of the season, I think he would really benefit from just sitting behind Russell Wilson and Jameis, learning from them. Obviously, when you take Jameis Winston as your quarterback, you're signing up for the full Jameis experience. And it is a bit of a roller coaster, as we've kind of seen in this spring. But I think it was yesterday, where Jameis just looks great and is making throws, throwing darts 30, 40 yards down the field.
Probably the last week he's looked great, to be honest with you.
I would say he started the spring maybe a little bit slow, but he's really picked it up this last, call it a handful of practices. Yes, as you guys can't see, Pearson was just doing the slow motion run. We all saw the photo of Jameis running from practice in the indoors.
And we got the video on the BBK tees out on Twitter that day, too.
He ran for, 30, 40 yards?
Yeah.
And it was a real 30, 40-yard gain, not like a fake one. So I'm going with Jameis as my quarterback.
Nice. All right, I'm going to fill out my safety spot. I'm going to go Raheem Lane. He's heading into his 4th year. He's played in 13 games. He's a little bit more experienced. Thought about Anthony Johnson here, but I've seen more from Lane in practice in the spring, so I'll slide Raheem Lane in as my safety.
Yeah.
Would you have picked him or Johnson?
I probably would have picked Raheem Lane.
Okay, me too.
He's just, it's close, but I've seen a little bit more from Raheem Lane this spring.
I agree with you.
So I would have definitely leaned towards him. All right, at this point, I'm just going to go down in order of
just start filling them out.
Ooh, okay. So now this is tough at running back because there's 2 guys here, the veteran and the rookie. And I know I might be leaning kind of heavily on the rookies here, but I'm going to go with Cam Scadaboo.
That's what I would have picked too.
Because again, with the upside, Devin Singletary is a solid pro. You know what you're getting with Devin Singletary. Scadaboo, again, a little bit of an unknown, but there's a reason why the Giants took him in the early 4th round. He was one of the best players in all of college football last year. Power, showed flashes of just electric running. And I know we haven't really mentioned this as being necessarily part of the equation, but we've seen clips and videos of him off the field, like pregame huddles in the locker room with his teammates. He's a leader. He is not a guy that's going to just, sit back and, let everyone else take over the room. Like, he's going to voice his opinion about things.
Yeah.
He's going to try to lead. Obviously, there's only so much you could do as a rookie, but I think this guy's going to have a great NFL career. And I think it's going to start this year with whatever opportunities he gets. I think him and Tyrone Tracy are a great 1-2 punch, and they complement each other very well. I think those two are the future, at least the next couple of years, because you never know with the running back position. But for the foreseeable future, it's going to be those two guys leading the way.
I would have loved to select. I'm with you, by the way. That's what I would have taken, too. I would have taken Victor Dumakaji as my edge, but injury there. So that's not going to work for 2025. So I'm going to mention a guy that I'm not sure we've mentioned on the show yet this offseason, and I don't want to make too big of a deal about it because it's been no pads and everything. But I'm taking a flyer. I'm going to go Trace Ford, who is an undrafted free agent that I think has really flashed in the opportunity he's gotten in the spring. And again, no pads, not a lot of contact. You could easily go with the Tamon Fox, but I think we know what Tamon Fox is, right? He's been here for a long time. We know what he is. And, Demetrius, and then, Dumakaji's hurt. So you're really running out of guys. So I'm going to roll the dice on the undrafted free agent here, and I'm going to go with Trace Ford, who I think has shown some pass rushing upside here in sprint camp.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this all the way back in rookie camp, but he was one of the two guys that in the rookie camp, which they really didn't do a whole lot, but caught my eye. And then once the rookies joined the veterans in OTAs, again, stood out a little bit from the other guys in, the second or third unit. So I like that pick. I mean, especially given it was between him and Tamon Fox, and he's on the smaller side, of course.
He is,
he's
he's
not big.
And I have two small edge players now in him and Carter, which I don't love, but it is what it is.
It's all right. I've got not the biggest interior defensive line. So, but yeah, I like that pick. Okay. Next up, I lied. I don't want to go down in the order because I'm not sure necessarily which tight end I want to take. So, actually, I take that back. I do know which tight end I'm going to take because
don't you have to take Bellinger at this point or no?
No, I don't. Because I don't necessarily love the blocking I have at the tackle position.
Oh, so you're just leaning into receivers at this point.
I'm going to go with Chris Manhurst.
Oh, okay. You want to go some big time help there. I like that.
He is the best blocking tight end on this team.
I like that. Okay.
And Bellinger, I do think, brings more to the passing game as a pass catcher than Manhurst. But I've got my three receivers that I'm very happy with. And Scadaboo, who can catch the ball. I'm going to need some more help blocking with James Hudson and Marcus Bowe as a rookie 5th-round pick as my tackles. So give me Chris Manhurst.
Perfect. Pierce, I hope you're evaluating these teams, by the way, because we're about to put you on the spot about which team you think is better. So just be prepared for that. All right, I'm going to go Jake Kubas to be my right guard. Him, Stinney, and Neal have kind of been rotating first-team guard reps with Runyon not coming back yet and Van Roten getting veteran days and stuff like that. So I'm going to slide Kubas in there at guard, and they love what they saw from him last year. Hopefully he keeps that up.
Yeah, that's fair. He's probably the next best guard on the team. So let's see. Next up, we have linebacker. Now, this guy, I'm happy was left there for me to take. I know you mentioned him before. We really haven't seen a whole lot from him because he hasn't gotten much of an opportunity. But he did get to start the season finale this past season. And he had, I believe, 14 tackles. And it was against the Eagles, who were playing their starters because they still had significance in the game. And he looked pretty good out there. Granted, that was the only NFL game we've seen him play. But he also, the year prior, so it was the 2023 training camp, was probably the defensive standout before suffering an injury that forced him to miss. I believe it was basically the whole year.
Yeah.
He never got called up to the active roster after that. I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson as my second linebacker next to Bobby Okereke. I hope he makes the team.
Me too.
I cannot wait. He is one of the players I am most excited to see come training camp in the preseason because that is when he's going to be given the most opportunity, and I think he's going to take advantage of it. So Deontay Johnson.
I saved this for last because I couldn't decide which guy I wanted to pick. So I'm looking at Zach Pascal. I'm looking at Little Jordan Humphrey. And honestly, which guy do you think's the better blocker? They're both special teams guys, so I think they can both do it. They're both big. I think Little Jordan Humphrey's probably a little bit thicker than Pascal is, right? He's almost like 230, right? Little Jordan Humphrey.
I feel like Pascal might have more of the track record of the blocking, better blocking.
All right,
I know who I would pick here, but
I'm going to pick Little Jordan Humphrey.
That's who I would.
I think he's a little bit younger. He's a little bit more upside. He's a big bodied. He can block a little bit.
He's huge.
He's just a huge guy, and he's made some plays too in spring practice. So I'm going to go Little Jordan Humphrey here, as I do not love my wide receiver core. That is my big regret here. As we wrap this up, I'm sure you have your own.
Yep.
But that is mine. All right, wrap things up, and then we'll get Pearson's take here.
All right. So with my final pick, I need another cornerback. I'm going to move Cordell Flott to the slot and take Trey Hawkins.
Okay.
As my second outside corner. Quite frankly, there's just not much left there. It was between, who is it? Trey Hawkins, Corey Black, who obviously a rookie 7th round pick. D. Williams, who we haven't seen anything from him really. Nick Jones, who the Giants signed to a reserve future deal right after the Super Bowl. TJ Moore, an undrafted rookie free agent. Trey Hawkins at least has some experience under his belt.
That's who I would have picked. It's fine.
And he's made some plays this spring as well. So Trey Hawkins is how I round out my secondary.
All right. I'll do a quick readout here of the teams, and then Pearson will give which one he likes the best. Do you want me to do offenses first together and then do defenses, or do the full teams? What do you think, Pearson? Do offense first?
Offenses, yeah.
Okay, so I'll list mine, then Citak can list his. My offense, I go 12 personnel. Russell Wilson, Tyrone Tracy, Jalen Hyatt, Little Jordan Humphrey, Theo Johnson, Thomas Fidone. My offensive line, which is, I think, the strength of my team, Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal, Greg Van Roten, Jake Kubas, and Jermaine Luminor. What's your offense, Mr. Citak?
All right, my offense, Jameis Winston under center, handing off to Cam Scadaboo. And then the wide receivers, Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. I think that clearly is the strength of my offense. Chris Manhertz at tight end for the blocking. My offensive line is James Hudson and Marcus Bowe at tackle, John Runyon and Aaron Stinney at guard, and John Michael Schmitz as my center.
Who do you give the nod to on offense, Pearson?
It's tough.
Well, what's more important to you, the offensive line or the wide receiver position?
Well, I like Jameis Winston hucking it up to these wide receivers.
Oh, but I got Russ.
It's a matter of if he has time.
I'm leaning into the passing game with my offense.
Yes.
Schmeelk might have to do some dump downs.
Oh no, I will be check down
deep
city
balls
and deep balls to
deep
Hyatt.
balls and
That's
check
what I am.
downs.
Deep balls and check downs.
You
are leaning into the variability on offense. Like Citak's have some really good weeks, and other weeks it's going to go very poorly.
I'm gonna have to lean on my defense a little bit.
You are.
There's some turnovers on offense.
I'm going to give the slight advantage to Schmeelk.
Oh, okay, I'll take that.
There's a few more starters on that roster, and
I think he's winning defense. So it's
you did lean.
I did
offense more early while I lean defense.
The protection's better.
I mean, your offensive line's just the tackles alone is significantly better than my offensive line.
Well, when you use 2 of your top 4 picks on him, it better be, right?
You might need Russ to run a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's and Jameis will have to use those legs. All right, so let's go to defense. My defense, I got Dexter Lawrence, Roy Robertson, Harris. I'm going to be stout against the run. I got 2 pass rushers outside, Abdul Carter and Trace Ford. Micah McFadden, Darius Musa out inside linebacker. My defensive backfield, where I have some questions, it's a very young defensive backfield. My corners, Deontay Banks, Drew Phillips, Art Green, and my safeties are Javon Holland and Raheem Lane.
And then for my defense, I have on the interior defensive line, Chauncey Golston and Darius Alexander. On the edge, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. At linebacker, Bobby Okereke and Deontay Johnson. Corners, Paulson Adebo, Trey Hawkins on the outside, and then Cordell Flott in the slot. And then at safety, Tyler Nubin and Dane Belton. And my safety group, at least, are going to lead the takeover department.
I feel good about your secondary.
Yeah.
And your edge.
Yeah. I mean Burns and Thibodeau are pretty good. I like Abdul Carter. I like my tackles. I think you got to give the edge of Citak on this
slight
one.
Advantage to Citak.
No, I'm with you. Hey, look, I think this was So what did you learn when you took a look at this and we did this exercise about the Giants' depth at certain spots?
I guess, and I gotta give props to Paul because he's been saying this for a while now. I think the Giants maybe could afford a little more depth in terms of cornerback. That if there is a position to address, maybe right before the start of training camp or be on the lookout during training camp if a team makes a veteran available, I think corner would be the position I would be looking at. I mean, I feel good about between Adebo, Banks, and Flott and Drew Phillips. Those 4 guys I feel good, very good about. After that, it's not that I feel badly about the guys, but you start to have some questions after that. That's really the main position. Every other position, at least the depth, I'm okay with. Obviously, you'd love to have a amazing backup player at every position, but that's just not feasible when you're constructing a roster.
And again, I'd say deep depth at safety, deep depth at inside linebacker. I think you like Foles and Board as the guys you have on your roster, but they're more special teams types.
I'm actually good with the linebacker
You're good with it?
depth
Okay.
because I like Bobby and I like Mike as the starters. I think Darius Musow and Deontay Johnson as your backups.
That's a good point.
They've got some upside at least.
That's
and Chris Board, especially. Chris Board's making the team, obviously.
Yeah.
And while he is special teams ace, he does have some experience playing linebacker. I think he might get a little bit more of an opportunity to play linebacker here. What he does with that opportunity remains to be seen. But I don't think linebacker depth is as much of I don't want to call it concern, but
No, I'm with you.
somewhat raising a flag as opposed to corners.
And look, I'll just say offensive tackle for every NFL team is always a spot you want more guys at. You just always want more guys there, and you can never have enough.
True.
Not that James Hudson, you don't feel good about him coming in and playing. If you had needed to, you got Bo, a guy you drafted who I know both. I was a big fan. I had a 3rd-round grade on him. So I'm a big fan of his. And, I mean, that's it. I think otherwise, you pretty good deep running back room. Tight ends, no one that's a star, but you got a bunch of guys that you have options that can play and do things for you. Wide receivers, you go 4 deep. You feel pretty good about it. You got Smith-Marset, a return guy. Who's your 6th guy if you keep 6? That's a question we got to figure out when we get there. Who's going to be the last guard on the roster, I think, is a fun game we'll play. Defensive tackle and edge is extremely deep. Yeah, I think, look, this roster, if we did this like 2 years ago, it would have been ugly. It would have been ugly.
I don't think we would have done that 2 years ago.
Would have been ugly.
All right, so I'm taking Jackson Dart,
Okay.
Devin Singletary,
All right, that's actually not terrible.
Daniel Bellinger,
Okay, that's not bad.
Zach Pascal.
Okay.
Oh boy, Bryce Ford Wheaton.
Okay.
Paul will love that pick.
You can put Amir Smith-Marset in there.
I'll put him in there because
Yeah, you can put
I
him in
love
there.
him. Then no idea for O-line.
Okay, that's fine. You can pull some guys out of the equipment room to play offensive line.
That's pretty much all I got.
Yeah. Okay, fine. That works.
Elijah Chapman.
Yeah, definitely taking
defensive
him.
tackle?
Definitely taking him.
Oh, you can put Jeremiah Ledbetter at the other defensive
sure.
tackle spot. He's a
True.
veteran they brought
Veteran.
in. You feel good about that.
Can I take Schlotman? Did anyone take
No,
him?
you have
Okay.
Schlottman
Took
at center. That's probably the next
Stone
best guy up.
Forsyth.
Yeah, you got
Josh
Stone.
Azudu.
Yeah, you know what? It's actually not as bad
Not
as
a
you
bad
think.
team, guys.
No, you're doing okay.
Ty Summers.
Tomon Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom on Fox at edge.
Chris Board.
Chris Board I'd have to take.
Flanagan Fowles as your tight end.
Yeah.
As
All
your
right.
linebacker.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Nah, you know what? It's a much better roster than we've seen here in years past. It just
Yes.
is.
Clearly, depth was a priority this past offseason. I mean, I feel like it has been for many years, but the Giants had to figure out their starters first.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of years under
Correct.
this regime to really get a starting core that you feel good about. And then they accomplished that and then went out and worked on the depth this offseason as well. And I think they really addressed the depth at a lot of different positions. Could you use more depth at a few others? Of course. But show me one roster across the NFL where you feel great about the depth at every single position. You won't be able to find it.
Hey, look, and the questions are the same ones we talked about. What kind of what quarterback play are you going to get? Right, that's a huge question. And then the guys that are on rookie contracts, the Neals, the Schmitzes, Deontay Banks, the Flotts, are those guys going to take the steps you need them to take? Newman and Phillips into their second year. Are those guys going to do what you need them to do in order to take that next step with your starter? So That's stuff we're all keeping an eye on as we move forward. Here, all right, we got 2 calls in. You guys have been waiting the whole show. I want to make sure we get you in. Scott and Brandon, we're going to go to Scott in Oregon first, Pearson. Scott, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Hello, yeah. I've got 4 premises I want to send at you, and you can tell me what's wrong with my premises. And in that hypothetical world, then I want to talk about a trade possibility.
All right. We don't have a ton of time, Scott. So let's start getting through them.
Okay, so the premise: Dart is playing well and would be ready by December or so. We can't keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster. My second premise. The third one is that Dart is going to need a mentor for this year and for next year also. And the fourth premise is that Wilson and Winston are not all that far apart. In other words, the improvement of Wilson over Winston isn't that huge. And given those 4 premises, you can tell me what's wrong with them, I would say we should be trading Russell Wilson away for Chris Olave. And maybe we would have to sweeten the pot with, I don't know, maybe a 6th round pick or something like that. I don't know.
I think you'd have to sweeten the pot a little bit more than
let's
that.
Let's start with that trade. There's no way in any chance that New Orleans would do that. Again, this is nothing against Russell Wilson, but he's a 36-year-old quarterback on a 1-year deal. They are not expecting to contend for a Super Bowl this season, given the rest of their roster. Chris Olave is one of their best players, and he's young.
Now, he has some concussion histories, and that's a problem.
For sure. I get there's a little bit of an injury risk there, but if you're trading him away, you're getting more than Russell Wilson and a 6th round pick.
Yeah, and Scott, I think they're looking for a 1st round pick if they're trading Chris Olave. First, I think that's where the conversation starts, and they probably want a little bit more than that, to be totally honest with you. I think the one premise, Scott, that I'll disagree with, I think your first 3 were fine. The premise I'll disagree with, I think there is a significant difference between Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. If you look at the years that Russell Wilson has had, even in his last 3 years, which, there are fair criticisms of them, single-digit interceptions, over 20 touchdowns. All right? Jameis Winston just doesn't do that consistently. And a bunch of teams had a chance to sign him to even a high-level backup contract this offseason, and they chose not to. The Giants got him at a fairly reasonable backup quarterback contract, to be totally honest with you, and if all the reports are correct. So I think there's a reason the Giants named Wilson the starter right off and didn't make it a competition. They believe, and so do I, that there is a more than small difference between the 2 players, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with what we've seen with our own eyes these last couple of weeks, and Russell Wilson is just so consistent. He is consistent. He brings consistency to the quarterback position, which, I feel like we might have taken for granted with all those years of Eli Manning bringing consistency to the position. But he doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He threw some interceptions. Some of them were on deflected balls or balls that hit off the pass catcher's hands and then deflected to the defender's arms. But he's just not going to turn the ball over a lot. And Jameis Winston, while he's got a cannon of an arm, and he has days where he'll throw dots 50 yards down the field and place it perfectly, you're like, wow, that is the number 1 overall pick of the draft right there. But then, the next play, he might throw the ball, right at the defender, right into the defender's arms.
Yeah, and thank you, Scott. Appreciate the call, by the way.
So I agree with you completely. I just think, especially given the state of the rest of the roster, you need the consistency at the quarterback position for sure. The other premises, Jackson Dart needing till December, of course, I would definitely agree with that.
Mentor for this year and next year.
The Giants signed Jameis Winston reportedly to a 2-year deal. I feel like obviously they didn't know if they were for sure going to get Jackson Dart, but I think they did that thinking he might be that mentor for whichever rookie they get for 2026.
Yeah, multi-year backup quarterback.
Yes.
Correct.
And then what was the second premise?
The fourth one was the one that I disagreed with. The other premise I think was pretty reasonable. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was reasonable.
Pearson, do you
I think
remember?
there were 2 QB ones.
No, there were 4 premises. I forget
They
what the
were
third
all
one was.
quarterback.
Yeah, I forget what the
It was
third
that
one
Jackson Dart needed time and that
Jackson
he needed
Dart
a mentor.
needed time. He needed a mentor. There wasn't much difference between Wilson and Winston. Oh, I think they were only going to keep 3 quarterbacks. Was that the next
he said
one maybe?
Is their chance or something about keeping 4?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
It's tough for any NFL roster to hold 4 quarterbacks. I mean, we've had many years of the Giants only having 2 quarterbacks on the roster. I do think, obviously, that there will be 3. 4 is probably a tough stretch because then you're really hurting the depth at another position, and we just talked about how you need as much depth as possible, especially at all those other positions which tend to be a little more physical than the quarterback position.
Scott, I apologize. I know you're trying to get something else in there. It's already past 1:30. I want to make sure we get Brandon in New Jersey and give him a couple of minutes here. Brandon, you're going to wrap us up today. What's up, pal?
All right, I have a few things, but I know we're pressed for time, so I'm going to just keep it to the shortest things I had on my list today. But I do want to call you back about this one conversation we had before, John.
Absolutely.
But real quick, the conversation we had, for 2 things I want to do. One, sing my own praises, and then 2, I want to ask you about a couple win totals since we're pressed for time. Number 1, I had called in November. There's more to this conversation, but I did want to say I said that there were a couple players I wanted to target. One of them was Parson Adobo. You put that man on everybody, and that worked out. And the other person was O'Donnell Fortune. So I would like an update on how he's doing so far because you didn't even know who he was when I asked you about him, and now he's on the roster. So, hey, also get my application up to the scouting department, you see? But, yeah. What do you guys think about Fortune for now and how he's, doing? I know there's no pads, how he's doing.
Brandon, I actually had forgotten that was one of the small school guys you actually did ask about midseason last year, which I did not recall. Now that you bring it up, I do remember that. He's got his hand on a couple footballs. It hasn't been anything spectacular, but
you just call South Carolina a small school.
That's right. I'm sorry. Lesser known prospects. Sorry, lesser known prospects. Pardon me. But yeah, I mean, he's had some moments.
He's made some plays.
Yeah, sure. He's been fine.
But you got to keep in mind that he is an undrafted rookie free agent. Right now, he is towards the bottom of the depth chart. Like, he's playing with the third string defense. He doesn't get as many reps as, obviously, the starters. Come training camp, let's see what he's got because he's going to get a lot more opportunities then.
Yeah.
But he has shown he has made some plays.
I think his major part is going to be come preseason because I think he's fighting Trey Hawkins for the same spot, and I think he's a better tackler. Trey Hawkins is kind of a liability in that. He's a better coverage guy, a lot more speed, but he's a liability in the run game. All right. So
Brandon, real quick, what I would say, Brandon, real quick, Fortune, what he does in the preseason games will be critical, absolutely critical.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So then I get the win total so you guys can get off. Earlier in the year, there were a few questions about the head coach. I don't particularly think he's on the hottest of seats, as some people were to believe at the end of last season. So I had 2 questions. I have one for him. I think if I'm John Mara, the only metric that I'm going to judge this coach on this year and whether or not he retains his gig next year is how many wins he gets at home. If you go 500 at home, I think you're good. I think if you do anything less than 500 at home, I know it's a tough schedule, but you're an NFL coach and you're playing NFL teams. You got to win at least 50% at home this year with what was going on. Protect the dollar, the purse, and you're not protecting the purse if you're doing a bunch of losing at home.
Brandon, have you seen
but that's my biggest.
Have you seen the home schedule this year?
I don't care. They're NFL teams. He's an NFL coach.
You're right. They are NFL teams, but the home schedule is significantly harder than the away schedule.
Yeah, I think, Brandon, there's a good chance they win more road games this year than home games.
I'm sorry?
I think there's a decent chance they win more road games than home games this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you got that anybody has that type of leeway. If they go, 0 for at home again and then they win all their away games, I don't think that bodes well for because again, the purse is more about at home than it is away. Of course they make money away, but the purse is at home. You got to win the home game.
Well, I mean, Brandon, it has nothing to do with Brandon. It has nothing to do with money. The games are sold out. The tickets are sold. Like, people aren't giving their tickets back. Like, they're going to make the money they're going to make for home games. Now, you want to put a good show on for your fans at home, obviously. That's critical. You want to do that. But it's not money related. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's and then the other thing about the schedule, we're talking about in the off season. Every year, somebody's strength of schedule is one thing at the beginning of the year, and it's completely different come the end. So I don't accept that. Oh, they got the toughest. Listen, somebody's going to fall off that was good last year. It's just every year that happens.
100%.
Sure.
The nature of so I don't accept that. 500 at home, and then the last win total thing. And I know this is weird, but like, let's say Russ does really well. How far do you think? Like the team has to go in the season for Russ to even get to the point where you could talk about maybe a 1 year, maybe 2 year extension? I don't think it'd be more than that because of Dart. But how much win? Because I don't. If the team makes it to the NFC Championship, I don't see them just, all right, Russ, that was cool. Let's do it again with the rookie next year. Like, I don't see that.
No, I hear you, Brandon.
So where do you think that has to be? Like, where do you think the line is for Russ?
Thank you for the call. Appreciate the call, man. Good stuff. And Scott, if you want to call back too, in Oregon, please feel free to call back next week. I'll give you all the time you want to talk football with us. I don't know if it's necessarily, and I think you tweeted me this question too, and I replied to you the same way I'm going to reply to you now. If they let's say they go to the NFC title game, but they do it scoring like 19 points a game because the defense is ridiculously good, like win-loss is not a quarterback stat. Or how does the quarterback play, right? That's the question. How is the quarterback contributing to you winning football games? Not necessarily how far you go. So that will be my answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the Giants make it to the NFC Championship, even make it to the playoffs, and Russ throws, for 4,000 yards and has 30 touchdowns with single-digit interceptions, then yeah, I see what you're saying. It would be tough to just let him leave after a season like that. But based on just what we've seen from him the last couple of years, I don't think that production necessarily is in the cards. I mean, I would love for it to happen because, again, that would mean very good things for the Giants offense. But when you make the move to trade up for Jackson Dart, again, I've been the main proponent here of saying give him time to develop, but at the same time, and everyone talks about this around the NFL, when you draft a rookie quarterback, you have a window. And you don't want to but spend, 40% of that window having that rookie sitting on the bench, because by the time he's actually in your lineup, let's say if they were to bring Russ back next year and Russ plays the whole year and then Jackson Dart's not starting until 2027, you have 2 years of him on his rookie deal and then the fifth-year option, which is more money than the rookie deal.
Yeah, by then it's going to be over $30 million, the fifth-year option.
Yeah, so then you're basically looking at that 2-year period of having a window open of your quarterback on a rookie deal.
Yeah, you're already.
And now we're seeing quarterbacks
get
huge extensions after 3 years in the NFL, some of the better ones.
Correct.
So I hear what you're saying, but I feel like based on the reported lengths of all of these contracts given to the quarterbacks this offseason, I would think the plan is, or the hope is, that going into week 1 of 2026, Jackson Dart is the clear number 1 starting quarterback.
Yeah, and you're already losing the first year of his rookie contract because of the Russ money and the dead money to Daniel. Yeah. So, I mean, you're already losing the first year of that advantage, right? Because you have between the 3 quarterbacks, $35 million worth of money going to the other 3 quarterbacks on the roster. So you're not getting that advantage in year 1. You certainly want to try to get that in year 2.
Yeah, again,
if he plays good enough to be the starter.
That's the hope. Obviously, he needs to, if he gets out there this year and plays, he needs to show you enough to give you confidence going into 2026 that he will be your starting quarterback.
Of course.
That's not something that's just going to be handed to him.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear.
100%. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for Big Blue Kickoff Live. Thanks for joining us from our podcast studio presented by Hackensack. Brittany Hell, keep getting better. Brandon mentioned the home schedule. Some great teams on there, folks. You want to see some of the best players in the National Football League? I think there are some season ticket memberships still available. Go find out. Giants.com/tickets. You get great member benefits. Stay connected to the club all year round. A lot of good stuff we get. We give to our season ticket members, so go check that out. And, of course, all of our Giants content you can find on Giants TV, which is on all of our, thank you, Pearson, on all of our platforms, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, all the smart TVs. You can find Giants TV on that.
Talk about the new huddle that just went up.
Yes, and we have a new huddle that just went up. That is Sean Aguano, the running backs coach for Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. Also recorded Deion Barnes, Abdul Carter's defensive line coach from Penn State yesterday. That'll be going up either next week or the week after. Then I'm just waiting on Ole Miss, still working on that one, and then we're going to get all our draft picks in the bag here. Chris Bizignano is going to go up on Monday, a little preview of minicamp and a wrap-up of OTAs. So a lot of good stuff coming up on the Giants Huddle podcast. Make sure you check it out. For Matthew Citak, I'm John Schmeelk. It'll be Citak and Dottino on Monday. Make sure you check that out. We'll talk to you then.